Okay, it's time for another quick demo, or what I'm calling things that are exciting my mind. First off, this little bit is something that I picked up um, because I thought it was fun. It's like a mini turntable. And so, in addition to being really cool to have a scale model of a turntable, I also got the idea that I wanted to create small, almost like 3x3 album art based on some of the stuff that I'm creating. So here you're seeing a prototype mock-up, and I'll give you a close-up here. And so this is laid out in Adobe Illustrator, printed out at home, hand-trimmed, glued and assemble. So I've got basically a scale album cover. And for the turntable, there's small plastic records, not vinyl records, but plastic. So I'm going to experiment a little bit with, the front and the back side. Here you're just seeing me repurpose some recent art that I've created. And I just think it's kind of fun. This is a neat little thing. You can probably get them on Amazon. I think I picked it up at Barnes and Noble. Fun little project that I've been working on. Next up, this is something I bought off of eBay. So I'm a big fan of Peanuts and Snoopy. Grew up with a lot of that in the background, holiday specials and in the Sunday newspaper comics and the paperbacks and stickers and you name it. And I love pencil sharpeners. I still use pencils all the time. So this is the perfect little inexpensive thing to keep around. And I just love it. So thought I would share that one. And speaking of pencils and drawing, I'm just sharing really quickly some sketches that I've been doing in one of my smaller sketchbooks that I keep pretty handy, keep it around while I'm working and try to take it with me when I go different places and so forth. Just did some goofy stuff on the cover of it, and I've been playing around with doing just really simple line drawings, but using things like highlighters and really simple color to just like bring some of the doodles and illustrations to life. So here you're seeing some of the things that are inspiring my mind and things that I'm looking at that I'm getting reference photos for, and things that just purely come out of my brain. So that's a little bit behind the scenes. You get to see my process, but a lot of good ideas start in a sketchbook, and sometimes even the things that I'm creating, I'll go back and redraw or draw by hand. So just fun, weird explorations. That's kind of how I experiment with thoughts and ideas. So those are fun, huh? This is something that I picked up on a trip to Louisville recently, and I was really excited about it because I was a big fan of Art of Noise. I collect 45s. I love picture sleeves. I happen to think this is an incredibly beautiful picture sleeve. I love the design, everything about it, the color scheme, the layout, the pattern, everything is great about it. What's even better is there is on one side Moments in Love, although it's called Moment in Love, which is interesting to me. So I've got a little bit of digging to do. I've always been familiar with the Art of Noise song being called Moments in Love. And this is a very short, like minute and 26-second version of it. So it's a moment of Moments in Love. I'm not sure. I'll look it up. On the flip side is Beatbox. And so that's interesting to me because both of these songs were really big hits for them, got good radio play, have been sampled many times by lots of different artists. So that was exciting for me. What's even more exciting is I got it for $1. And so I was digging through a record store in Louisville, and there were just boxes of 45s. And I walked up to the counter and I said, you know, some of these that don't have prices, are they variable? He's like, oh no, anything that's back there is $1. So that got my juices going. So I started picking through a lot, and I picked up a number of 45s. Maybe I'll share that haul at some point. So that was exciting. But, you know, another thing that I've been experimenting with is, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos and so forth, and I'm always fascinated by the filmmaking and cinematography process. And I think it's exciting to think about how engaging you can make things visually when you put some thought into it, instead of just taking photographs. And right now, what you're watching is pretty static, and I would argue pretty boring, because you're just seeing a headshot of me and you're seeing some screen activity. So it got me thinking about experiments, like what could I do when I share out and demo things to make things a little more interesting. And so what I'm about to show you is a little bit of one part storyboarding, one part experiment, and it just gets me thinking, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things I'm going to cover. I'm going to let this play, and then I'll go back and talk about some things really quickly. Okay, so there's several experiments baked within this experiment. The first experiment was, for the first time, I used my Apple Watch to frame the video and trigger the recording. So that allowed me to set up a tripod to be able to, you know, capture these dynamic camera angles. So that was the first experiment. The second is, it got me really thinking about blocking. So I love, you know, starting with the focus on this particular 45 sleeve. I realize I'm showing beatbox when the flip side is what's actually playing in the background. So, you know, you start thinking about these kind of things. The transition had to be, you know, pretty jumpy, because these scenes are changing quite a bit, from going to a tight close-up to, you know, something, you know, further back. And I'm sure cinematographers, film nerds, they think about all this. I really don't think about all these things, but now it gets my gears going. The next thing that I thought about, because of the blocking, is, you know, it was cool to go from a close-up to further away, but I quickly learned that I don't want my elbow in the scene and blocking all the action. That's like the worst thing that you can do. Like if you were on stage as a performer, you would never turn your back to the audience. So I'm blocking all the action. So simply moving the camera and the tripod, you know, to a slightly different angle would have helped capture all the action. But until you block this out, you don't think about that, right? Another thing that I quickly learned is, you know, here we go from the light on the turntable is off and here it's on. So those are, you know, I think filmmakers probably get themselves in trouble, and there's always blooper reels about things that change subtly between scenes. So you have to kind of, I would imagine you have to think ahead about a lot of that stuff. So that was a learning lesson for me. And again, the elbow is problematic here, but I do like sort of the snapshots of action, you know, going from a tight shot to further away to close up, you know, and it made me think about how could you storyboard or block those shots. And then this is just nice. It's different because there's no human in the scene. So that's a different kind of clip. And this one was good as kind of like an ambient B-roll, because even as it's playing, when the music's playing, it seems like it might be synced up. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then, of course, this is my poor man's Zoom. I used the tripod with the camera still attached, and I just leaned it forward. Now, I'm sure there's hundreds, like better equipment would do all kinds of cool things. You could probably do something in Final Cut or whatever. By the way, I'm just using Adobe Express. I imported the short clips. I trimmed them a little bit here to what you're seeing, and then I dropped an audio track, and I just used the few generic transitions that they have. So I've never proclaimed that I am a cinematographer or a filmmaker, but I can experiment and think about these things and learn and grow to become that, if that's something that I choose to spend my time. So, fun experiment. Okay, next, let's talk about new work. So I've been working with a lot of cool ideas around creating new designer toys and new characters and so forth. I'm definitely inspired by, Japanese toys and kaiju toys and all the custom designer toys that are out there. But this is my attempt using artificial intelligence to bring lots of different elements together and even play with texture and color and everything. So this is sort of a hybrid plastic metal toy bot that I created. And let's go back and take a look at some other things. I created this little scene. I really like the detail. Like, this guy's roughed up. He looks like he's been played with. Things are all scratched up. So those are all things I thought about in the prompting to get to these images. And I'm putting a lot of thought into poses and using reference images and style images to sort of get these composites. And then I go into Photoshop and clean up a lot of the weird artifacts that come from generative AI and creating images and so forth. But I've been, just working again, just like the experiments with the video clips, also thinking about more dynamic cropping and images to give a little more power and interest to these images. And these are in pretty good shape. These came out pretty good. Lots of nice smooth texture. This one's interesting because it feels like sort of cheaper plastic and so forth. So I'm pleased with where some of these experiments are going. And I've been working on, this was a vector piece that I worked on. So sort of my own take on an Ultraman style character. In this case, it's Ultra Meow, and trying to use actual Japanese in the designs and so forth. So I'm using translation to mock up some of the typography, another experiment that I'm working on. So yeah, you could check out the section of visibilityexp.com. There's a section called Ultra Mega Mongo, and these are a lot of the Japanese culture inspired things that I'm working on. I think I've shared these in other demos, but I'm working on ideas where they're sofubi, some people say sofubi style characters, and in this case I've worked on naming them, mocking them up almost like a toy catalog, so you can see all these different characters, and it's been really fun to customize the differences between a cat based or a wolf based versus this guy is tied to lava and heat. Obviously this one's influenced by a shark, his teeth and fins and gills and so forth. But yeah, you can see the influence of these characters, and I'm trying to represent different styles and approaches within them. Next up is just some things that I've seen more recently. So this is from the inspiration section on my site. It's kind of my own Pinterest board. These are fun. I don't know if you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books. This is something that we held on to. I think my wife kept this one, and I pulled it out, and there's some fun illustrations in that, but just reminded me of cool 80s books and things like that. Stumbled across this very weird, I think, Big Boy. I don't know if it was a prototype or if it was actually what was up on the wall in the restaurant. It's pretty rough. It looked to me like DIY Big Boy, but kind of terrifying but fun. What else real quick? This cracks me up. 21 Jump Street collectible cards, a very young Johnny Depp on the cover. So you can check out that section. There's all kinds of cool stuff that I've been stumbling across lately, things that I've found by going to like antique shops and things like that, and other things that are just inspiring me. I actually stood in front of this painting. I was half tempted to buy it, but I didn't. I don't really need it, but kind of groovy and weird. I've been seeing a lot of cassette tapes, so there's quite a few photos in here. So check those out. There's lots of cool stuff that I keep adding stuff periodically. Last but not least, I was talking with the owner of a designer toy store in Louisville, and we were talking about stuff in our collections and things, and I have a very big Charles S. Anderson archive. So I sent him a handful of photos of things from my collection because he let me take some photos of his collection in the store. And this was one thing that I wanted to share with him because it's not always easy to find these. And certainly it's one of the more interesting and rare things that Charles S. Anderson Design did. And they literally assembled all these cheap plastic toys and put them inside of a custom design 10. And this was something that you could order from CSA back in the 90s. And so I think it's just really fun. All these weird, made in China, made in Taiwan, whatever small pieces and trinkets, maybe something that you'd find in a Cracker Jack box or what have you. And so I have this original set, and so I photographed it so he could see it. And I was doing silly things like putting the gorilla head on top of another character. So that was something that I wanted to share from my archive. I want to share more of the stuff that I have in my own collection. I have a really large Charles S. Anderson Design collection. I know lots of folks that are into that, but that's it. Pretty lengthy collection of things that are exciting my mind, and I hope you enjoy these. I'm looking forward to doing these more frequently.